JPC Letters. 3 Theosophical Letters. A critique of the work of Alice Leighton Cleather and Basil Crump. Titled, The Pseudo Occultism of Alice Bailey. Originally published in pamphlet form in 1929. Letter 1. Cleather and Crump make enormous leaps of the imagination, resulting in an attack on the teachings of AAB and the Tibetan DK. This is indicated as follows. The harm attempted on my ashram has been more easily offset, and the source of hate which it represented failed in its attempt because of its general ill repute. It has been offset by love and understanding, which is not so easily the case in a first-ray attack. The above may or may not be the attack referred to by the Tibetan decay, though could well represent similar. Love and understanding are keynotes here used in this critique. Nowhere does AAB say or infer that the work of HPB is inadequate, and this appears an invention of the writers, Alice Cleather and Basil Crump. AAB does draw to the attention of the reader that HPB work is preparatory and AAB intermediate. HPB states, "These 2 volumes only constitute the work of a pioneer who has forced his way into the well-nigh impenetrable jungle of the virgin forests of the land of the occult. A commencement has been made." It is also drawn to the reader's attention in AAB works, that HPB herself indicates that she turned the first key and no further, and that in century the 20th another disciple far better fitted will come. The term, God, is presented for a Western audience. It is representative of good, or graded logos. It is a generic term for a Western audience and no more, although detailed explanation of logi and logos are given so far as allowed for the second phase of the teachings. Ray 2 is named in Sanskrit, Harakesa, for yellow or golden-haired, being just one understanding of the second ray ruling the sun itself, and is certainly given by HPB, although this is disputed by Cleather and Crump. From their works they say in dispute, quote, "One may search in vain for Mrs. Bailey's ray of love wisdom in the secret doctrine and given to it, concerning the love aspect of the logos, contain nothing of the kind." End quote. One must recall that the works of AAB brought a great expansion of detail pertaining to the 7 rays. HPB stated, Fahat in his capacity of divine love, Eros. This is a reference to Fahat and the 7 rays in his capacity as love wisdom in the second great ray breath. Harakesa is clearly the second ray of love wisdom that Cleather and Crump have missed yet have condemned therein. I do not think there is any genuine theosophical denial that there is indeed a second ray of the 7 divine Fahatic rays. Caution is needed where condemnation to the left-hand path is made. It has been clearly stated that the editorial in the Beacon magazine in error published the name of a Tibetan. See Discipleship in the New Age Vol 1, 781. A mistake and no more, yet life moves on. The graduation was in taking the 5th degree initiation in 1875, as a Master of the Wisdom. There's no accused illiteracy. This is not a plausible inference. The word systemic is meant, and not systematic, though this is how Mr. Endersby reads it. A vast cosmological bridge and distinction unperceived by the non-occult mind has been made. Only the ignorant would infer or offer the interpretation as, quote, disease. And this clearly signifies their own prejudice and blind ignorance. This is hardly so far a ringing endorsement for following students to refer to or endorse. Systemic suns are mentioned in Secret Doctrine, and systemic cycles are mentioned in Lucifer. Systemic evolution is covered both in Secret Doctrine and a treatise on cosmic fire, the latter being the work predicted in reference word of HPB. It is a continuity of occult teachings of the Trans-Himalayan Brotherhood, and disease does not rest well with this, in the sense Endersby meant it. It is quite unfitting for him to do so and for later students to use it. Also, exoterically, systemic, covers any system, in regards to the whole or its entirety. JPC Letters. January 31, 2012. Letter 2. On the three fundamentals of the secret doctrine, AAB writes, students are recommended to study them carefully. In this way their understanding of the treatise will be greatly aided. Treatise on Cosmic Fire. 3. The Tibetan Master states, these postulates are simply extensions of the three fundamentals to be found in the proem in the first volume of The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky. The postulates spoken of are the introductory postulates of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. I strongly advise all students to read them and not to condemn them. This is because HPB herself advises that her 2-volume books on the secret doctrine do not complete the scheme, or treat exhaustively of the subjects dealt with in them, for they were a prologue to prepare the reader's mind, and this is due to the predicted further work from her, which did not come, and due to her personal prediction of final proof of the existence of the Gupta Veda, given by the 20th century disciple to come. As the work of AAB was then predicted by HPB to come in century the 20th, and that the disciple would be far better fitted, it is only natural and logical that accordingly the postulates are simply extensions of the three fundamentals to be found in the proem in the first volume of The Secret Doctrine. This was foretold by H.P. Blavatsky's own words. Again, she stated that her work was not The Secret Doctrine in its entirety, but a select number of fragments of its fundamental tenets. HPB even emphasizes the fact that this is needless to explain. One must then wonder why Basil Crump states in his and Cleather's defamation of Trans-Himalayan teachings that Mrs. Bailey develops a whole cosmic scheme of her own. Had he, or both, read Blavatsky's work more thoroughly, Crump and Cleather would understand what HPB wrote, and possibly why she wrote it. They might conclude that the work of AAB was the predicted second phase, second key dissemination of the secret doctrine from a disciple far better fitted, according to her own reference words. HPB predicted in that coming work that the second psychological key will be turned just as she turned the first key. Crump and Cleather do not understand this, but rather condemns the Trans-Himalayan work to the red caps and left-hand path, being the power behind it, and saying it means little or nothing and leads nowhere. This is copied, replicated and repeated by later students of theosophy up to this day. HPB said that the work was too gigantic for one person to accomplish, and that she prepared the soil for a later predicted disciple to come with a further installment, a karmic installment, and both in service to humanity. JPC Letters. February 4, 2012. Letter 3. Mr. Crump disputes 7 centers of logoic force discussed by Alice Bailey. Crump fails to research his work and once again misses, with drastic consequences for his contemporary and latter-day students, the secret doctrine references to centers of force. HPB herself in her masterpiece lucidly teaches on the 7 planetary spirits, the regents of the planetary 7 rays, and the planetary logi or logoic 7 Dian-Shohanic centers of force. HPB clearly describes the 7 wheels, the 7 centers of force, which incidentally apply to any atomic unit such as an atom, which is a logoic center of force in its own right, and relatively so according to HPB. She is clear, is she not, that the 7 procreative rays or powers, the logwa or builders, are the planetary builders, and identities of the 7 centers of logoic force. The force being logoic, as emanating from the logwa, the planetary spirits before the throne, the 7 procreative rays or powers, the logwa or builders, which rays she names in numerical order, producing 7 Dienshohanic centers of force. Crump is responsible for bringing, via certain group members of the Theosophical Society, over many years a direct attack upon Alice Bailey and upon HPB's own words, and therefore an attack on the ashrams of the first ray and of the second. Being in this instance that of the ashrams of Masters MKH and DK. Are the consequences of this clear? It is very clear that this is a minority core group of followers, who, following in the footsteps of Cleather and Crump, condemned to the Black Lodge the disseminations of HPB due to the condemnation of AAB, her co-interashramic disciple, who were the first and second keyholders respectively of the 19th and 20th century hierarchical thrusts of the secret doctrine. Far from Alice Bailey misleading students, away from the real teaching, according to Crump and followers, she and HPB did the very exact opposite in tandem and under hierarchical and karmic law. Let it be stated that the greater theosophical group are in no way responsible or partic in this deplorable activity or state of affairs. Let us hope this is the case. The Cleather reference, as a reliable source, appears to be quite inadequate so far. I have aimed to show that where the claim of phony quotes, as stated, appear, I will attempt to show that it is a false claim. I gave one example in a previous letter. I gave another in my last letter. So far Crump has demonstrated his inability to substantiate that statement. But he and Cleather have highlighted the fact that they do not understand the works of HPB or AAB. The words of Crump on 7 centers of logoic force being designed very cleverly to lead the student away from the real teaching and confuse his mind is falsity and does not stand up to reality of the stated 7 Dienshohanic centers of force in the secret doctrine. Be it logoic or Dienshohanic, for both are the same, the distribution of solar fire throughout the centers of the solar logos and through the heavenly men throughout the system, is a part of the teachings given to us. It would be wise to study the occult teachings before Cleather and Crump are copied with the claim of malfeasance. Of course, the text from a treatise on cosmic fire is just a fraction and merely serves as a snippet of the expansive work on the psychological nature of the entities of the solar system and universe. HPB informs she brought the first completely physical or physiological key and much historical information, with the later deeper psychological elucidation coming via AAB, that disciple far better fitted, according to HPB. The second key expands on the psychological entities and 7 rays throughout her books and the treatise on the 7 rays. This is indicative of prediction and occurrence in factuality and in truth. JPC Letters. February 4, 2012.